Well, thank you so much for joining. Welcome to the Software Sustainability Institute Fellowship Program 2023 launch webinar. I can't believe we're off to another round of the fellowship program already. Time certainly flies. My name is Rachel Ainsworth, and I'll be your host today. I am the Research Software Community Manager here at the Software Sustainability Institute, and I manage the fellowship program. So just a few practicalities for today. If you do experience any problems, please just put a note in the YouTube chat box and we'll do our best to help you. I've got some colleagues here to help me out with any issues that you have and to relay your questions. So just to note, there is a small lag between the Zoom webinar and the YouTube live stream. So if there are issues, it might just take a few seconds for me to get that sorted for you while people are relaying the message to me. This webinar is being recorded and the video will be made available on our YouTube channel immediately afterwards. And we will make sure that we have the appropriate captions after the event. You can connect with us on Twitter at @SoftwareSaved. So please feel free to ask any questions in the chat or on Slido. We have a dedicated Q&A session at the end where those will get answered. So whatever is easiest for you, if it's easier for you to be on YouTube and type into that chat box, that's perfectly fine. If you prefer to make sure that your questions are anonymous, or if you prefer a more interactive webinar, feel free to submit your questions via Slido. The event code is 4415610, and there's a QR code on the screen, and the link is also in the YouTube chat box. So today I'll start by introducing the Software Sustainability Institute, and then I'll tell you a lot more about the fellowship program and the application process. We will then hear from 3 of our fellows, Lucy, Emily, and Kim, who will tell you all about their personal experiences of the fellowship program. And then at the end, we'll do our best to answer any questions that you may have, and we'll wrap up at the end of the hour. So I'll start by briefly introducing the Software Sustainability Institute. If you do want to find out any further information about the Institute and about our activities separate to the fellowship program, please just visit our website. It's www.software.ac.uk. But the Institute is a national facility in the UK promoting the advancement of software in research since 2010 by cultivating better, more sustainable research software to enable world-class research. And we like to put this in our motto, which is better software, better research. So the Institute is a collaboration between the universities of Edinburgh, Manchester, Oxford, and Southampton, and we are very proudly supported by all 7 UK research councils. The Institute is comprised of 5 teams. We have a software team, which helps the community to develop software that meets the needs of reliable, reproducible, and reusable research. We have a policy team, which is kind of combination with a research team, which collects evidence on and promotes the place of software in research and shares this information with our stakeholders. We have a training team, which delivers essential software skills to researchers and partners with institutions, doctoral schools, and the community. We have a community team, which is where I sit and where the fellowship program sits. And this team develops communities of practice by supporting the right people to understand and address topical issues. And then, of course, finally, we have our communications and outreach team, which exploits our platform to enable engagement, delivery, and uptake. So you can find us across many social channels and through lots of outreach opportunities, such as the research software camps. Each of the teams are involved in many different activities. Some are listed here on this slide. But I'll focus briefly on what the community team does. We have over 190 fellows currently, and we have organized dozens of workshops, including 14 collaborations workshops, which I'll talk more about towards the end of my presentation. So the Institute leads and engages in these activities because the UK research community relies on software. And this is evidenced by a survey that the Institute conducted in 2014. Over 400 researchers responded to the survey and replied overwhelmingly that they use research software, and a majority said that their research would not be possible without software. So the Institute's mission is to help researchers improve and continue their work through cultivating better, more sustainable research software. So now let's talk about the fellowship program. Why does the Institute have a fellowship program? Well, it's a really great way for us to engage with natural ambassadors of better software practice from the research community. We believe that the promotion of better and more sustainable software is best done by those already within, the different domains, the different fields, or the different areas of research support work. So we are able to support those involved with improving software practice and help them form communities of practice. And then in return, fellows help the Institute discover important information about software within the different research domains and areas of work. And they help guide our training policies, community work, and consultancy engagements. So who are we looking for in terms of the fellowship program? Applications are very welcome from all research domains, fields, or area of work, and from all career stages. So whether you're in phase 1 of your career, such as a PhD candidate or a junior research software engineer, or you're later in a later phase of your career, such as even a professor or a director of a research software engineering group, and then of course every phase in between, we would love to receive your application. And we will be assessing the applications by taking your career stage into account. So here's a breakdown of some of the demographics from previous years. As you can see, we have a nice spread across gender, although this can always be improved. And we always want to encourage those from, underrepresented backgrounds to apply. And not just, across gender, but also in terms of race and ethnicity, and also in terms of, where you're based, such as institutions. If you're from, smaller organizations or non-Russell Group institutions, we would really highly recommend applications regardless of your background. We also have a wide spread of people from various career stages, although many of our fellows are early to mid-career, as they tend to have the most time to engage. But we would really like to encourage those in more experienced roles to apply as well, because folks in later phases of their careers have a lot of influence when it comes to policy and getting better research practices enacted in your domains and institutions. The Institute is funded by the UK Research Councils, so we do strongly encourage those supported by AHRC, BBSRC, EPSRC, ESRC, MRC, NERC, and STFC to apply. However, applicants supported by other funders are also highly encouraged to apply, such as those who receive funding through their institutions, or other funders such as the Wellcome Trust or the EU or other international funding agencies. Again, because the Institute is funded by the UK Research Councils, we are looking for applicants who are based in the UK or have a formal affiliation with a UK-based institution or office. However, we are very excited to announce that we are continuing our pilot for opening the program up to international applicants throughout the 2023 round of the fellowship program. So I'll expand on this a lot later in the presentation, but in short, we will have up to 3 places for successful international applicants. So regardless of where you are based, your plans for the fellowship must be primarily focused on improving UK capability and capacity, and potentially include promoting a UK-based approach abroad. And this is just to fulfill our funding requirements. But again, I will discuss what that means for international applicants later in the presentation. To be eligible for the fellowship program, you should be one or more of the following, and just bear with me while I read through this list. So you could be a researcher who uses and or develops software or digital tools. You could be a developer who writes tools for researchers. You could be a research software engineer who supports the work of researchers with software. You could be an advocate for best practice in software use or development in research. You could have a leadership role in research projects or organizations that make heavy use of software. You could be a user of research software, or you could just be passionate about software in research in any way. So you don't have to be a research software engineer or a developer, and you don't have to be a researcher. You can be in any research support role, from librarians to data stewardship, to IT, to everything in between, as long as you are very interested in helping us to improve research software. We would love to receive your application. So in summary, we are looking for champions of improved software practice within their domains or institutions and effective collaborators. So you should enjoy working with others and be good at promoting your work to a wide audience, such as through organizing events, outreach, blogging, social media, and so on. We look at your contributions to your communities, such as through software, papers, presentations, data sets, and more. And we look at whether you can communicate your ideas beyond your specialization. And something for you to consider when you're applying is, do you have time to engage? So the program does require around 10 days in the year of being involved in, win-win activities. That is activities that benefit you and activities that benefit the Institute. And I will talk a bit more about that in a bit, about the types of activities that fellows have done. And then finally, in terms of things that we're looking for, you could be involved with, but these are not mandatory, but you could be an advocate of open and reproducible research. You could be involved in communities of practice, either as a member or a founder or a contributor. Some examples of communities of practice, especially within our fellows community, include Open Life Science, the Programming Historian, and the Turing Way, just to name a couple. You could also optionally collaborate with or take on an existing fellow's work. So are you a natural successor to an existing project, or do you already collaborate with any of our existing fellows? You could potentially propose, maintaining that work, sustaining that work, building off of that work. And you can find out more information about our current fellows and their activities through their profiles on our website. So some of the things that we expect from our fellows, I'll start with the phase 1 career stage, such as, PhD students or junior research software engineers, is we're looking for people, we expect you to have the time and inclination to contribute to the community. So to engage with your research or domain or institution, attend and organize events, whether in person or online, share experiences, insights, and outputs from your event participation. We expect you to use your platform as a fellow to promote better software practice and research. We expect you to align with and promote the Institute and its mission, and attend any required events. And I'll touch more on those required events in a little bit. Some of the things that we expect from fellows in phases 2 to 3 of their career, so early to mid-range, such as postdocs, research associates, lecturers, readers, research software engineers, and senior research software engineers, include everything on the previous slide, as well as helping to seed or nurture a community of practice in a research software related area, running workshops to promote software training or best practice in your domain or institution, or if you work with other fellows on this. Optionally, you could contribute to policy, give a talk on behalf of the Institute, or you could undertake carpentry instructor training. And then some of the things that we expect from fellows in phase 4 of their career, such as professors or directors, chief data scientists, and so on, include everything from both of the previous slides, as well as organizing and chairing networking events to help create policy on Institute priorities, such as better software, more recognition of software development and developers and research, and software in the reproducible research agenda. We expect you to help promote the Institute's mission to research leaders at your institutions, research councils, and government, and then possible attendance at Institute advisory board meetings and co-review on the outputs from earlier career phase fellows. However, we are also open to any other suggestions fellows have for activities. If none of those activities resonate with you, please do get in touch. We're always very happy to discuss your ideas and work with you to help you achieve your goals for improving computational practice within research. But our promise to you as the Institute is that we will listen, we will be responsive, we will work with you as one of the team, we will support you and your work and ideas as a fellow. We'll be fair and flexible where possible, and we will help you to develop your community development skills. So what are some of the benefits of being an Institute Fellow? You'll receive a £3,000 event fund. You'll raise your profile and have your opinion heard. You can organize and attend events. You can present your work, and there are opportunities to gain teaching experience and training. There are publishing opportunities, both formal and informal, such as through our website. You can gain higher visibility within your institution, which can lead to potential new collaborations. You can be considered a thought leader in your area. we offer a platform to influence research software policy. And most importantly, you can join a dynamic network of fellows. And I think this is a really big one, as the community is very supportive, very inspiring, and highly engaged. So what are some of the requirements of being a fellow? So if you are offered a fellowship, you will have to agree to a terms and conditions document. So each cohort has their own. You'll be able to see the 2022 terms and conditions on the website, and the link is in the slides as well at the end, so I'll share that with you. But yeah, each cohort will have their own, so you'll be sent that when offered the fellowship for you to read through. You are expected to write a blog post for each activity that the fellowship supports you with, and I'll talk more about that in a minute and why we expect that. You are expected to attend the fellowship program inaugural meeting. So this is where we bring the new cohort of fellows together, either virtually, as we've done during the pandemic, or in person. That's still to be decided in the new year. But it gives you the opportunity to meet your new fellows, as well as Institute staff. You'll be expected to take part in a midterm review so that we can see how you're doing with your fellowship and see where we can offer you more support. You can attend collaborations workshop, which is our annual conference, and I'll talk more about that in a few slides. We've got fellows community calls that you can attend when you're able to, and then we have done an open fellows meeting in the past where we've been able to bring fellows together in person, and we hope to start those up once the pandemic subsides. And you can take part in a survey on your participation in the fellowship program, and this will help us improve the program in future years. So I'll come back to that requirement about the blog posts for supported activities. So once fellows have used their funds to, attend a conference or run a workshop or any of the other activities that they've proposed, we expect them to write a blog post. And this is because blog posts not only report your activity and what you've done, but it also allows you to disseminate that information to the wider community and also point towards other resources. They are the main output that is read by those who visit the Institute website, and we get over 20,000 visitors a month. You're also very welcome to contribute any other blog posts in addition to this, such as, about your expertise or any advice. And blog posts also encourage outreach skills development. So here's the timeline for the 2023 fellowship program. Applications are open and the deadline is Monday, the 3rd of October. We aim to let applicants know if they are shortlisted or not by November 1st, so you'll find out either way. Shortlisted candidates will then be invited to participate in the online selection day, and this is our version of an interview stage, which consists of a full day of group activities where candidates will be assessed on their skills relating to communication and communication skills. And I'll talk a bit more about this in a few slides and point you to where you can find out more information about how that day is run. But this year, the online selection day will take place on Thursday, the 17th of November from 10:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. GMT time, and we will provide breaks throughout. So if you are unable to make that date and you already know due to a clash, don't let that put you off applying. Please still apply. If enough people cannot attend that day, we usually arrange an alternative selection day for those who can't make that date. But if you don't already have a clash, please do save the date. The final selection of fellows will be made based on the combined assessment of the candidate's performance during the online selection day and the fellowship plans proposed in the screencast applications. And I'll talk a bit more about that again in a few slides. But we plan to make the formal offers of the fellowship to successful candidates by the 28th of November. And then we'll make the official announcement for our 2023 cohort in December, and you can officially start your activities in January. Right, so now I'll move on to the application process. Let me just double check and see if I've got any messages. Nope. So the application form can be found at this link, and it's also linked from our website, and it should have already been pasted in the YouTube chat. So the main part of the application is a 6-minute maximum voiceover of a slide presentation screencast. So what that means is you'll just record yourself speaking over a slide presentation. we have provided lots of guidance on our website for how to do this, and with tips and tricks on both content and technical aspects. So we suggest that you spend about 1 minute describing who you are professionally, 1 minute describing what you do, and around 4 minutes describing your plans for the fellowship, although you may decide to spend more time on any section. If a video application is not possible or accessible for you, for example, due to disability or economic reasons or lack of equipment, we will accept a written application. And the written application should include the same information as above, approximately 800 to 1,000 words, and include a brief justification why a written application is being submitted instead of a screencast. But if an alternative application format would be better suited to your accessibility requirements, please do not hesitate to contact us. And I think I probably need to speed up a little bit. During shortlisting, your application will be assessed based on your demonstrated ambassadorship during your application and your plans for the fellowship. So the full shortlisting criteria is listed at this link on our website. But just in short, do you have a clear link to research software or the research software community? Do you have experience advocating, organizing, or participating in activities to improve research or computational practice in your area of work? Are you a clear and effective communicator? And then do your plans for the fellowship demonstrate, an understanding of the big picture and vision for improving computational practice in your area of work? And how is your solution and your plans for the fellowship and methodology, how will that have an impact? And then are your plans SMART? So the acronym just means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound within the fellowship. And again, this is all expanded on and explained at that link on our website. So here are some examples of fellows' activities. Carpentries online by many of our fellows to bring, carpentries lessons to areas with unreliable internet access. Activities, such as workshops on reproducible research in R, a good mental health, good research software survey by Dave Horsfall, intermediate research software development in Python, and lots of activities. And we'll hear more about some of our fellows' activities coming up in the fellowship experiences. Just a very quick note in consideration of COVID-19, we've found out that travel and in-person events are not always possible. So, please do consider virtual or hybrid events as part of your activities. And you can read more about that in this blog post. And again, the slides are shared in the YouTube chat for all of these links. So some more information about our international fellowship pilot. The 2023 round will be a continuation for our pilot for opening the program up to international applicants. We'll be able to offer up to 3 places for successful applicants who are based outside of the UK or without a formal affiliation with a UK-based institution or office. And this is a pilot to help us identify and address challenges for opening and scaling up the program internationally in the future, particularly around finances and logistics. So again, because the Institute is UK funded, we do ask you to demonstrate that your plans for the fellowship have a focus on improving UK capability, for example, feeding in successful research software related initiatives or approaches from abroad into UK-based projects. So, I plan to work with Project A in the UK to help them incorporate Approach B, which my lab has been developing as an example, or adding capacity to do particular tasks and collaborate with UK-based teams. So, for example, I plan to collaborate with the UK team Y to contribute Z. And then you also need to promote UK-based approaches abroad. For example, promoting UK-based initiatives, projects, or ways of working, such as the Institute, research software engineering, credit for software, reproducibility, career paths, and skills. You should also demonstrate how your fellowship can successfully deliver on its plans if there are potential challenges related to time zones, language barriers, or the cost of having to travel large distances. And changes to eligibility are subject to new information learned along the way. So, just financially, we might come across issues, and these are all, things and areas that we're looking to explore and address through this pilot. I do just want to note that the fellowship does not support paying for hardware such as laptops or computers, or for staff time for developing software. So this is not employment. We cannot pay for your time to do these activities. This is funding to support you with activities that you would like to carry out, that's kind of different from what your institution or organization would support you with. So, it's primarily focused on supporting you at, for, and leading events and activities. But if you do have any questions about your specific case, please don't hesitate to email us. And apologies to my speakers, I am running a few minutes behind, so I will try and speed up a little bit. So the online selection day, shortlisted candidates will be invited to participate in the online selection day. And again, this is our version of the interview stage. So there will be group activities where candidates will be assessed on how they contribute to a session and what they contribute to a session. And you can find the full criteria and what we kind of expect from this day on the website. So that's linked from the fellowship program page website. And again, it'll take place on Thursday, the 17th of November. So please save the date. And the final selection of fellows will be made based on the combined assessment of the candidate's performance during this online selection day, as well as their fellowship plans proposed in the screencast application. So what happens once you become a fellow? We have a few required activities for you to attend. So you'll have a fellows inaugural meeting where we'll bring the new cohort together. This will be either online or hybrid, probably either in January or February, but we'll send around a poll to everybody to find the best time. And it provides an opportunity for you to meet institute staff and your fellow fellows and network. So you can read about the last one on our website. Collaborations Workshop 2023. So CW for short is our flagship annual unconference. So it brings together, all stakeholders within the research software community to, explore important ideas in research and software and start interdisciplinary collaborations. It's an unconference, so we do have, some keynote presentations and contributed sessions, but we also have discussion groups and lightning talks and collaborative ideas and speed blogging and a hackathon at the end. So you can see some of our previous themes for previous years, but CW23 is aiming to take place as a hybrid event from the 2nd to 4th of May. And the theme of this year's event is sustainable career development. So that encompasses, topics within technical, career, and personal development, looking after your software, your career, and yourself. And just to note that all shortlisted candidates to the fellowship program will receive free registration to CW23. And then we believe that once you're a fellow, you're always a fellow. So we have a continuing fellowship pot that you can, request funding from, beyond your inaugural year. And we hope that you continue to engage with us over the years. We ask you for your opinions, we provide opportunities for networking, and your influence continues, such as acting as reviewers for the, helping to recruit the next cohort of fellows. So here's a whole bunch more links. These have already been shared in the YouTube chat. So if you scroll up, you should find them. And if not, we'll paste them again. But if I haven't answered anything with within these slides, if you have further questions, please go ahead and pop them in the YouTube chat or on Slido, and we'll come back to them after we hear from our fellows. So I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to hand over to some of our fellows. So let me stop sharing my screen. So I will start with Lucy, who very kindly pre-recorded her talk in case of internet issues. So let me just get that shared. And I will turn off my video.
Hello everybody, my name is Lucy and I'm here to talk about my SSI fellowship. Okay, so a little bit about me. I am a materials physicist. In particular, I'm interested in modeling energy materials. That's materials for the generation of energy or storage of energy. I'm an educator, so I'm a trained teacher. I lecture now as part of my job at undergraduate and postgraduate level, and I'm a software carpentry instructor. I'm also a topic editor at the Journal of Open Source Software and a programmer. So most of the software I write is analysis tools for computational materials science. Okay, so thinking back to 2019, which is when I made my fellowship, why is it that I wanted to apply? Well, I think the first reason was to sharpen my programming skills and knowledge. So to be around other people that enjoy software development and to learn from those people. And that's primarily because, like a lot of people, I've not had any formal training in software development. So it's something that I've always had to pick up quite informally. The second reason is because back in 2018, I'd been lucky enough to attend a few conferences around research software engineering, RSE, and software development more broadly. That was the Rsc conference, Carpentry Con, which was in Dublin. That's a software carpentry conference, and MozFest. And I met some people at these conferences and thought this seemed like a really cool community. And I knew that a lot of people within SSI are also aligned with these different communities. So it's really just a community that I wanted to be more involved with. And finally, I thought it would be nice to have a little pot of money to put on events. I had a few ideas for different events I'd like to put on. And I thought it'd be nice to have some money to put those on because they didn't quite fall within the remit of my PhD. Okay, so what was my SSI pitch? Well, it was very much based around this idea of single-use software and trying to stop people from developing single-use software. So by this, I'm kind of drawing an analogy to single-use cups. So by this, I mean software that people develop and use once, and then it's never used again. And I see this as quite a wasteful use of researcher time. So I wanted to develop and deliver a course which is based around get your code publication ready. So help people who are already writing code to do that next step and start publishing and sharing their code. The second item that my pitch mentioned was increased participation in the Rsc community. And that's because, as I mentioned, I'd attended several conferences, but I hadn't been more active. So I hadn't presented any work. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to take that next step and be a bit more active within the community. Okay, so for all of us, this time period brought a lot of surprises. And for me, it brought surprises on both a personal and global level. So in 2019, that was when my fellowship started in May. That same month, I also found out I was pregnant. I was able, during my pregnancy, to get a start on my fellowship activities. So I visited Aalborg. In particular, I wanted to visit the Code Refinery people. They run, it's quite similar to software carpentry, or the carpentries, but it's a little bit more further on. So it's they kind of cover some more advanced topics. And I wanted to learn from them about how they develop and deliver their courses. So that was a very nice visit. But at that point, I kind of went on maternity leave from my fellowship because at the same time I was juggling my PhD. It was a lot. It was a busy period. And of course, the SSI were very supportive of that and were very happy to give me that flexibility. So yes, so early 2020, I went on maternity leave. And then, of course, the pandemic hit as well. And during this time, I had a relocation to Newcastle upon Tyne for my new job. I'm working at Northumbria, so at Northumbria University. So that was a new job and a relocation. So a lot of things were happening, which meant that I wasn't able to deliver this course that I had envisaged. So I had to do a little bit of a repivot because I wanted to use my funds, but I knew I didn't have the resources to be able to develop and deliver a full course. So I should say that this idea about no more single-use software and trying to encourage people to publish their software, it didn't completely disappear. So it's definitely fed into other work. It's formed the basis of more of funding bids for more substantial pots of money. And it's also fed into my work as an editor at the Journal of Open Source Software. So it's definitely an idea that's still ticking along. What I did end up using my funds for, or the majority of the funds for, was to grow the Northumbria research software engineering community. So I really wanted to meet other people at Northumbria University who use and develop research software and get us talking to each other and supporting each other. And so I used my funds to put on two very, I think in my view, very successful events. We had a lot of people at these events, and what I was very proud of is people from many different faculties at the event, all talking to each other about research software. I was also able to use the funds to participate more fully in the community. So I used it to attend conferences and speak on a panel and to present my work. And I was also able, I also during this period applied to be topic editor at JOS. So the fourth activity I did as part of my fellowship, which I wasn't expecting, was advocating for the Rsc community. So taking what I had learned within the world of SSI and Rsc, and then trying to take that to my specific domain in materials science and computational physics. So talking about the importance of reusable code and software sustainability and how this might enable more reproducible science, and kind of flying the flag for these very important topics. Okay, so some of the benefits that came out of the fellowship. Well, I think the first is that I now have a network of people. So I've received informal mentorship throughout my fellowship. I've put in some funding applications and with people I've met through SSI, and I've been able to contact people and ask them to speak and support events at Northumbria. So that network has been very useful. It's also improved my teaching practice. So those interactions I've had with Code Refinery and working with software carpentry, that's really informed my practice, my teaching practice at undergraduate and postgraduate level. This third one, career opportunities. Now, I don't know whether I would have been successful in applying for a fellowship at Northumbria University or as JOS topic editor. That latter is an unpaid position. I don't know whether I would have been successful in either of them if I wasn't a SSI fellow, but I definitely think the fellowship helped. And finally, increased visibility. So I think when you're an SSI fellow, it gives you, perhaps it does boost your visibility within the community, and then you're more likely to get invitations to speak at panels and Rsc events and so on. There are also, I think, some less tangible benefits from being an SSI fellow, which are still very real. So for me personally, I really feel that my identity as a software engineer has been supported by being an SSI fellow. It keeps me connected to other people who practice research software engineering, and it really gives me the confidence to be able to contribute. So it makes me feel qualified, for want of a better word, qualified to contribute to discussions around Rsc. It also gives me the permission to use my time on software engineering tasks. So like many people in academia, I often feel pulled in many different directions. And I like that the fellowship really encourages me to do software development alongside other elements of my scientific research. And finally, I think the SSI provides an alternative way of working. So I, like many academics, I'm part of many different groups and organizations and professional groups and so on. And I think the SSI is much more progressive and forward-thinking than many of these other groups. I think that the way that they run events tends to be more inclusive, more welcoming, more supportive. And so I have definitely benefited from that, in that I feel more comfortable at the events and more enthused to be part of the community. But also I've learned from that, and I want to take the way that they do things and try and incorporate it into other communities that I participate in. Okay, so my advice to potential fellows, or for people thinking about putting in an application, is, well, firstly, just do it. So when I put in my application, I kind of felt a little bit unqualified, I guess, to be an SSI fellow. But I didn't let that stop me. So I just went ahead and did it. And I think if you're feeling maybe a bit of a lack of confidence and don't know whether you're qualified to put in an application, just do anyway. So I've put this phrase here: shy bairns get out, shy children get nothing. So just, just put yourself out there and see what other people say. My second piece of advice is to have one good, clear idea. So the successful applications that I've seen tend to hinge around one clear elevator pitch type idea. So it might be a bit more complex than that in your head, and there might be a few different things you kind of want to do, and it might end up a little bit more complex. But for the application, I'd say try and distill it down to one clear, easily sellable idea. Okay, so thank you very much, SSI, for giving me my fellowship and for being a great organization. And thank you to you for listening. And I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lucy, for sharing that. If you have any questions for Lucy, if you want to pop them in the chat or on Slido, or if you have any fellowship experience questions in general, please do that. And I will now hand over to our next speaker, Emily.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk to some of the same things that Lucy talked to, but I'm going to try and offer a perspective from somebody from a humanities background. So a little bit about me. I'm currently a lecturer in digital humanities in the School of English at the University of Leeds, but only as of this month. Previously, I've been a postdoc on 4 different projects that had kind of different digital focuses in different institutions and different departments. So I've worked in English, but also history and politics. As with Lucy, I don't have any formal digital humanities training. And in fact, my PhD was very undigital, really. But I'm also responsible for educating others and have been responsible for developing new digital and software-based projects. And I've also engaged in several research projects as a postdoc that had a kind of evaluative aspect, looking at things like database design or library provision across the world. So in terms of what attracted me to apply for the programme, when I applied, I was doing my first postdoc at Loughborough University with Melody Beals, now Melody Wood, who is also a fellow, and she encouraged me to apply. So I'd wanted to be more involved in a kind of digital humanities community for some time. As I said, my PhD and my background wasn't exactly digital, but I was kind of training myself and trying to upskill myself. And the project we worked on was a very digitally focused project, looking at different kinds of databases and metadata. So I really wanted to expand my connections within the digital humanities space, feeling at that point a little bit like a newbie, part of a project with a lot of global connections and quite a big team, but I wasn't involved in developing the funding bid for that. And I hadn't really been feeling part of a software or digital community yet. We hosted the SSI conference in 2019 at Loughborough, and that made me feel a bit like I'd finally found my people and a community that I wanted to be a part of. So I applied after that. An issue that I'm particularly passionate about is trying to tackle the lack of knowledge sharing I see in my field, excuse me, where everyone is solving the same problem over and over again without knowing others are facing the same thing. So a little bit like Lucy said, people are developing software. It's not a great use of researcher time when it's not used again and the same things are being done over and over again by people that aren't aware that this is being worked on elsewhere. So the SSI is great at bringing people together, knowledge sharing in a way that was more ambitious than I had envisioned for myself, given the diversity of topics and backgrounds that people are working on and coming from, and a commitment within the fellowship kind of model and the blog posts and so on, to paying it forward and sharing what we learn, so bringing it back to communities of practice. And that's very important to me. So digital humanities itself has a way to go in sharing knowledge, and kind of people who define as digital humanists are not the bulk of people doing humanities research, and how we kind of cross different silos and knowledge share is an ongoing issue. And I've also been able to be more involved in shaping policy at the funder level, thanks to my SSI fellowship. But things have changed quite a lot from my initial fellowship plans and goals. I started my fellowship in 2020, the year when we couldn't do any of the in-person things that I'd proposed and wanted to do. So I'd applied for a fellowship to enhance my own training, to develop a community of practice within my area of Victorian studies and literary studies and make cross-disciplinary connections, as these are vital to digital humanities projects. And I'd already seen that in the postdoctoral work I'd been doing. 2020, strange year to start, and I wasn't immediately able to carry out the things I had planned, and I'm still working on some of those things, but my plans have evolved, and much as Lucy said, some of those things that underlie what I'd intended to do have manifested in different ways. So at the collaborations workshop last year, we discussed the issue of software reusability in digital humanities research, and I've been working with Anna Maria Sashani, who is another fellow, on this question, with some further events to follow. What I initially wanted to do, and still hope to do, is hold a multi-day training event on some fundamental digital skills for English literature and Victorian studies, given that general level of software literacy is not exactly low, but it's not central to research in that area. So it needs to be better articulated, and communities need to come up kind of solving that issue of shy people who don't really identify as people who use software, for whom software is very important. So plans have changed, but these kind of underlying aims of sharing knowledge, upskilling people, creating conversations have underlined some of the other things that I've been doing, from collaborations workshop to some other things that I'll talk about in a bit. In terms of the kind of commitment being a fellow entails, it's all been positive, really. As Rachel said, it's win-win activities with things like regular community calls where you get to hear what other people have been doing and talk about issues you've been having. There are Slack channels for specific issues, including digital humanities, including developing communities of practice. The inaugural meeting and the conferences and the various other meetings like that have been a good opportunity to discuss ideas with people who might have similar software needs in different fields to you. And I think humanities people are not really used to being able to have those conversations. The commitment to ensuring learning is brought back to your community and that your ideas are shared. So you can fund training for yourself, but think about how you're going to pay that forward and bring that to other people. Blog posts on events and things that are funded. But again, this is useful because it kind of attaches your name to something. It enables you to write for different audiences and to kind of think about how you put forward what you've been doing to these different audiences. And being involved in the selection process for new fellows. And I'm always going to fly the flag for the humanities to be a big part of what the Institute does. In terms of what I've enjoyed the most about the programme, it's really been the opportunities I didn't foresee, having to adapt for the pandemic. As I said, a few of the things that I wanted to do haven't happened, and we have been able to create online events to have those discussions about software reuse in the humanities and what's practical. And there are some blog posts on the SSI website arising from that. I'm currently working with Anna Maria Sashani and Shoaib Sufi on a report on software needs in the humanities. And this is aimed at the major funder of the humanities to provide advice on how the Arts and Humanities Research Council supports researchers, funds projects with a software element. So it really does feel like I'm having an opportunity to make a difference within, not just within my field, kind of Victorian studies and then literary studies, but also in the kind of broader sense of how software is treated, how training takes place at the funder level. Hopefully, the report hasn't come out yet, so we'll see. In terms of the benefits fellowship has had on my career, it's really allowed me, as I've just said, to feel involved in shaping things beyond my field. There's been some really good practical help. So the SSI helped with one of my postdocs, helped us to organise some Zoom workshops that were partly about disseminating what we'd done, but mostly about gathering feedback and developing collaborations. So they enabled us to run those events. We adapted the speed blogging format that Rachel mentioned and that the SSI sort of developed and provides tools about to get people to discuss issues and produce outputs and kind of short pieces on particular topics that we could then take forward. Their online conference guide, for being one of the first organisations to have one of these online events early in 2020, was instrumental to an event I organised a few months later. And there's a lot of online resources that they provide that have been incredibly useful. As Lucy said, being able to say I'm a fellow has helped me with collaborations. It's helped me in forming funding bids. I've had opportunities such as peer reviewing and reviewing for the major funder in my field for digital projects. And I feel like I'm having a growing profile in this area. And as I said, when I started my first postdoc, I was very kind of aspirational and wanted to do more in this area, but didn't feel like I was really part of the community. So it's helped me to build a profile for myself at a key point in my career. And the job I have now, lecturer in digital humanities and digital skills, I think I can see how the fellowship and thinking about communicating across disciplines, the educational aspect, developing communities of practice, and the kind of commitment to sustainability and the next generation has helped me in that position. So for my final sort of minute, 30 seconds, in terms of advice for potential applications, I would think about the same thing that Lucy said of being specific. But for me, it's been not just having specific goals, because as I said, and as Lucy said, with the pandemic, we weren't able to do exactly what we had intended to do. So it's important that your application doesn't just ride on one in-person event being successful. It needs to be adaptable. It needs to be in service of aims that are not just tied to things like that might need to change. And really thinking in terms of short-term, medium-term and long-term aims, I feel like I haven't quite finished achieving my short-term or medium-term aims. The events and things I wanted to organise are in the works, but haven't quite happened yet. But I'm making more progress, ironically, with my longer-term aim of aiding with the idea of development of training resources in arts and humanities research, tackling those questions of sustainability and support at a higher level. So make sure that you're specific about what you want to achieve within the fellowship period, but remember it's not just a one-year thing, it's an opportunity that goes beyond that, and make sure that it's fitting in with the long-term goals that you have. And the other tip that I would leave this on is consider how effective collaboration can help you achieve your goals. The fellowship, the Software Sustainability Institute itself enables you to collaborate with researchers across different disciplines. But are there organizations that you could partner with in your field or in your area that would be helpful to reaching new communities? And are there existing fellows you could work with? So being suggested by Melody, working with Melody was a big part of me applying. And I'd be very happy to hear from anybody who wants to discuss that kind of collaboration in humanities research. So thank you, I'll leave it there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Emily. I really appreciate you sharing that and waving the flag for the digital humanities. So I have one final fellowship experience to share. Apologies for running late. That's my fault. I was speaking very slowly in the beginning, but I'm going to go ahead and share this and then we will get to your questions. So turn off my video.
Hello, my name is Kim Martin, and I'm currently a postdoctoral fellow at Stellenbosch University in South Africa, working in a group funded by the Hans Merensky Foundation to study the effects of climatic variables on eucalyptus wood formation. I learned about the research software engineer role in 2021, and after joining the Rsc Society and attending the September Rsc conference, I became increasingly convinced that my university would benefit from having Rsc support for researchers across all faculties. One of the problems I faced was the lack of awareness about Rsc in South Africa. It's hard to advocate for the establishment of an Rsc group if researchers and funders are unaware of the existence or value of Rscs. The International SSI Fellowship has played a role in helping me demonstrate how RSCs can support research and in adding to my credibility generally. I've framed a few lessons in the following slides. I would say that they're the lessons that I have learned or am learning through this fellowship. To be honest, it didn't really cross my mind to apply for a fellowship. I'd seen the program being advertised, but didn't really think that I was a suitable candidate or had any hope of being awarded it. Thankfully, Anelda van der Walt of Telarify sent me a message on the Friday afternoon with the deadline on Sunday night and encouraged me to put in an application. I think the lesson from that is make the effort to talk to supportive people and don't let yourself be held back by self-doubt. My original fellowship plans were somewhat hastily put together, given that I only had a couple of days to apply. I wanted to put together a self-contained project that would make for a good fellowship project by itself, but that would also help me further my goal to establish an RSC group at Stellenbosch University. My original plan, which I laid out in my fellowship application screencast, was to run a competition for African researchers, coaching them through the process of improving their developing grant applications by adding RSC components, and to have prizes awarded to the researchers who were best able to incorporate aspects of RSC into their own proposals for greater impact. I felt that the project would be useful not just in the context of my goals by raising awareness of RSC locally, but also as an interesting test case for the SSI, as an intervention that they might be able to repeat elsewhere if it was successful. After working through my plans in more detail with the SSI team, I decided to change tack slightly to avoid some complications around handling prizes in the context of a competition being run outside the UK. I'd actually wanted to give out cash prizes, but that would have been problematic for the SSI. After meeting with the SSI team, along with additional input from Anelda van der Walt and Yo-Yo Hoodie of the Open Life Science program, who I'm also fortunate to have as a mentor thanks to the RSC Society, a new plan was developed. Instead of a competition, I decided to change tack and use my fellowship funds to provide targeted consultations to selected Stellenbosch University researchers from RSCs based in the UK. That effort has been coming along nicely, and I currently have 4 consultation engagements set up with the intention to recruit additional participants soon. I think the lesson here is do your best to come up with a workable plan, but don't resist the need to change and adapt to circumstances. And where you have people who are willing to work with you, appreciate that opportunity as the learning experience it is. In terms of commitment, aside from the commitment to attend certain SSI events, be responsible with your finances, and blog about your work, the time and energy involved depend on your project and your own level of passion. I found the opportunity to engage with SSI staff and others around assessing and reshaping my plans to have been enjoyable and educational. I've also found it gratifying and motivating to have positive responses from many members of the Rsc community, including participants. I would say that the lesson here is you get out what you put in. And when you work on a project with the aim of supporting a community, you may find yourself positively surprised by how much support you get in return. My being an international SSI fellow has, I believe, assisted me in my aims indirectly by giving me more credibility as an advocate of RSC through the connection with the SSI. The supportive community has been of assistance in many ways, especially the SSI staff, as I've already described. I believe that my fellowship project and the fellowship itself have helped me supercharge my efforts to establish an RSC group at Stellenbosch University. I would say that the lesson here is leverage is a powerful thing, and it can be unexpected how much of a difference any given achievement or connection can make in helping you advance your mission. I made a point of going through previous fellowship application screencasts, making notes of things I thought were effective and not so effective in the different examples available online. I would also say the lesson here is have a clear plan of how the project you propose fits in the broader context of your goals and the greater good. Finally, I would only say go for it. Being a fellow is what you make it, and it can be a powerful catalyst for you in your career.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kim, for sharing that with us and your international fellowship experience. So I am now going to reshare my screen. Just a moment, please. Here we go. Right. So thank you so much to Lucy, Emily, and Kim for sharing their experiences of the fellowship program. Hopefully you find those useful and inspiring for your own application. If you'd like to read more fellowship experiences, we have a lot of blog posts and videos that you can watch. So we have fellows updates during our community calls on our YouTube channel. We have blog posts by recent fellows, Jasper and James, describing their experience so far. Jasper's in particular talks about the application process and the recruitment process. And then you can read more about Emily's experience about being a digital humanist during her fellowship on the blog as well. And then we also have an evaluation of the fellowship as in the form of a research article that you can learn more about kind of the benefits and the impact that the program has had. And that's all linked there. And again, the slides are linked in the YouTube chat and on the website. So now we'll move on to our Q&A. I do apologize for the lateness and overrunning a bit, but I will take the time to answer your questions. So do please submit them in the YouTube chat or via Slido. We have had some come in already, so I will start answering those. So first of all, might you know how many fellowship applications you've received in previous years and how many fellows do you plan to appoint this year? So we normally receive between like 40 and 80 applications a year. It fluctuated a lot during the pandemic. We got a lot less applications than we normally do just because I think workloads were really high during the pandemic. So we do hope to see kind of an increase in applications this year, but we had about 40 last year. We usually shortlist around 30 applicants to go onto the online selection day. And then we aim to take about half of that. So between around 15 is normally what we recruit and appoint into each cohort. And remember, we have up to 3 places for international applicants this year as well. General question, how much of the plans should be focused lab versus outside collaborators or wider institute? So this entirely depends on your goals. We don't have any restrictions on where you focus your fellowship plans and activities. If your goals are to, improve research practice within your lab, and then you are able to disseminate how you do that to the wider community, that's fine. If you have ambitions to collaborate outside of your lab, and particularly with members of your domain or field or area of work, that's also fine. We have the shortlisting criteria on the website. So if you just read through those about how we assess your plans for the fellowship, that should hopefully answer your question in a bit more detail. I am in a similar area, but unfortunately, due to reasons out of my control, I do not have many publications. Is it worth applying for one or no? Is it worth applying for the fellowship or not? It is absolutely worth applying for the fellowship. So we do not assess your academic record or like your CV or anything like that. Again, the assessment criteria on the website. So we only assess you based on, your connection to the research software community, and your, have you demonstrated ambassadorship within your application, or how you, hope to be an ambassador, as well as your plans for the fellowship. So publication record does not come into account. I think there were also questions in the chat around, if you are only 2 years out of your PhD or not. So we encourage people from all career stages to apply, and you don't have to be in a university, you don't have to be in academia, as long as you have an interest or passion, and want to improve computational practice within research. That's what we're looking for. Let's see, can we apply if we do not have software development experience? Absolutely. And I think what really resonates with me, especially from hearing from our fellows, is, we often feel like we're not qualified for, a Software Sustainability Institute fellowship because we're not software developers. But that's just not the case at all. Many fellows are not software developers, but we understand the importance of software, whether we use software, which we showed earlier in the presentation that, most research relies on software. That's what the fellowship is all about, is promoting better practice, computational practice within research. So you do not have to be a software developer or have experience doing it, just a passion for kind of improving computational practice throughout research. I hope that answered that question. We do have a list of kind of eligibility on the website as well. So, you can be a researcher who uses software, or you can be a research, a software developer, or you can be somebody who advocates for, better research software practice in your area of work, or you can just be passionate about it in any way. So I think that was all the questions that were in the chat, and I didn't get any through Slido. Oh no, I do have some through Slido. So here's a question. I'm employed by my institute as an embedded RSE, so I am not directly supported by a research funder. Is that a problem for applying for a fellowship? Absolutely not. When you apply, it just asks you how you're funded. So my institution is an option, or you can just write in, I think. So that's not a problem at all. I missed the beginning of the talk. I assume the fellowship period is for 1 year. So the inaugural period of the fellowship is 15 months. We have extended this for the past few cohorts due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we will kind of assess how, current times are affecting our fellows and their ability to carry out their plans. Of course, if something comes up, if you need to go on parental leave or, take a break due to your own personal circumstances, we work with fellows on a case-by-case basis to support you in achieving your goals for the fellowship. So, we can work with you on, when to, drop your fellowship and pick it back up again, or if it needs to be extended to extenuating circumstances. So we're really flexible. We work with fellows on a case-by-case basis for most things. And so we're here to support you in achieving your goals. I think that's all the questions I've got in the chat. I will reshare the links in just a moment. I'm getting a request for it. For all of the slides and the website. I do have a few questions that I got via email that I'll just quickly answer now. Will the £3,000 grant be given as a one-off payment to the recipient, or would it be dispersed as required for the planned activities? So these are dispersed as required. You are not given the £3,000 lump sum. And a related question is, are the allocated funds paid to the academic's institution or held by the SSI and claimed by the academic via expenses? So correct, they are claimed by the academic or the fellow as expenses. So we do not give the fellow the £3,000 lump sum. We do not give the fellow's institution or organization the £3,000 lump sum. You claim the reimbursement from us as you carry out your activities. And the grant does not count as additional external employment. It is simply, paying for your expenses to carry out the activities proposed in your fellowship plans. And then finally, I did have one question relating to international applicants. Would it be acceptable to apply in Spanish or any other language with English captions as an international fellow, assuming I can provide sufficient ties and benefit to the UK? And this is a really interesting and valuable case for our international pilot. So I don't actually have all of the answers related to this. This is something that we would probably a challenge that we would try to solve during the process, since it is a pilot. So we do have, a criterion during shortlisting that, international applicants should also demonstrate how they can successfully deliver on their plans if there are potential challenges related to time zones or language barriers or the cost of having to travel large distances. And these are all things that we want to solve with this pilot. So I would say, do apply. I think the challenge in this case will predominantly be during the online selection day, which is our interview stage, where you'll be working in groups with other candidates. So I would say that it is important to be able to communicate well enough in English. It is okay if your English is not perfect, as long as you are able to get your point across. That's more than okay. So I'm going to stop answering questions now, because I think that was all I got. I will come back over here. So just a huge thank you to everybody who attended, especially Lucy, Emily, and Kim. Thank you so much for your presentations, and apologies for going over time. I really appreciate your time and sharing your experiences with everybody. A huge thank you to the Institute team for some of the slides, the photos, information, and to Mario and Jacqueline for helping out in the YouTube chat. And then, of course, a huge thank you to our funders. You can see the grant codes there. The slides are available on Zenodo. I will paste the link once again in the chat and in the webinar caption. They are also linked on our website on the launch webinar page. And then this recording of this webinar will be available once it ends. So yeah, if you do have any further questions about the fellowship program or want to discuss your specific case, please do not hesitate to email me at fellows-management@software.ac.uk. And thank you so much.